What's up with you, man? Am I live? Am I live and direct right now? What's up, what's up, what's up? This is the Sports Court. I'm Gregory Beatty. I would say alongside Eddie Cox, but something just happened on his way over here, and everything is okay. But, hey, was not about to leave the building. Every now and then, you have to adjust to the curveball, something the Astros definitely could not do today. Well, they scored 5 runs, but the Mariners scored 7, I'm just seeing. And my boy BT, I know he's probably throwing something at the television right now. Hold on right quick while I actually take care of some stuff on here right quick. But glad y'all are with me today, who's ever with me right now. Appreciate that. Of course, again, you're listening to the Sports Court, Grade A Radio, the show where we keep it 100% of the time. Let me see, Skrilla, man. I'm trying to, I'm doing all this technical stuff now in here today, unexpectedly. Let me turn my volume down on here first of all. Let me turn my volume down in my headphones. I remember I used to wear these headphones all the time. Still might rock them every now and then from time to time. I might do that again, but let me go ahead and share right quick before I get rolling. Like I said, glad to be here. My name is Gregory Beatty. Once again, you're listening to the Sports Court. Again, my sidekick, Eddie Cox, last minute scratch in the game right there. So, hey, the show must roll on. The game must go on. And here we are. Hey, Skrilla. Hey, man, what's up with it? They say the Astros lost today. The Astros lost 7-5. Matter of fact, let me go back to that real quick. Let me see what's going on. Hey, I told y'all now the MLB playoffs, now it's game one, obviously. But the Mariners are no joke. And this is what I said, and this is what I've been saying about pitchers. Of course, Verlander, we all know Verlander is a first ballot Hall of Famer, and we know what he's done over the last 3 starts. I don't think he's given up as many runs as he gave up today. He gave up 4, I think, in the first 2 innings, if I'm not mistaken. But sometimes that's what happens. Now, that's a game that the Mariners definitely want to take advantage of. If you're going to rough Verlander up like that, you have to get out of there with that victory today. So I know it's the best 3 out of 5. And, of course, most of us Houstonians, us Astros fans are definitely thinking the Astros can still put it out. I'm sure that's the thinking on most of us. I still think the Astros can put it out. But as far as the pitching is concerned in the playoffs, it's a different ball game. And when you face a young team, like the Mariners with Julio Rodriguez, I'm talking about, and I've told y'all about this guy, just signed that long-term extension with the Mariners, and he has that city buzzing again because of his exploits. You all remember the kid, Ken Griffey Jr., back in the day, and what he was able to do with the Mariners and Jay Buhner and the big ticket Johnson. I'm talking about the hard-throwing lefty, and the list goes on and on for those. Alex Rodriguez, of course, for a period of time there, and that's the buzz that the Seattle Mariners had back then in the mid-'90s. And now Julio Rodriguez has given that city some excitement again, something to feel good about. I mean, he has that team playing at a high level. Obviously, the manager is doing a great job, but the team is believing now. You don't have the quartet of stars that you had on the teams I just named back then, at least as of yet. The one that you definitely know about right now is Julio Rodriguez, the tremendous 21-year-old rookie who's going to be – he's already a superstar, folks. He's already a superstar, can do it all, 5'2" player. I'm talking about can play the field, has an arm, has speed, plenty of speed, can hit for average, can hit for power. The guy is special. And you see what he was able to do today. I think early on, he's the one who sparked his Mariners early on by getting them out the gates early with the 2-run double, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, I was kind of moving around not too long, had got in and really couldn't watch as much of the game as I wanted, but I kept up with the score. Excuse me. I kept up with the score, but it was obvious that the Mariners, see, that's what happens too sometimes. Pitching in the playoffs is different. I mean, because these guys are locked in, and the Mariners have nothing to lose. And that's what I was always saying about the Astros pitching, as great as they've been. And, of course, they have that experience from last season to draw back on as well. And it's only the first game, so I'm not going to overreact. But usually the team that wins game 1 in the best-of-5 series is usually the team that goes on to win that series. Now, we all know the Astros. They're a team that's been there, done that, former champions, make what you will of that. But we all know the Astros, the best team in the American League this season, and we all know what stellar pitching they had the entire season. But one thing I've always said, and it's not breaking news, anything like that. Anybody that follows the game or that knows sports or that really follows the game knows this is how it is. One thing I've always said, now that pitcher staff gained a lot of valuable experience last year. Now today, of course, Verlander gave up 4 runs, and sometimes that happens. Maybe next game he'll be dialed in, and you may be lucky, the Mariners may be lucky to get 2 hits off of him, no matter where they're playing, Houston or Seattle. But it's a different ball game in the playoffs. It's a brand new season. And as far as the Astros pitching, as much as the success as they had in the playoff, in the regular season, and gaining that experience from last season, of course, you would think they would take that, the domination that they had as a staff, you would think that would carry over into the playoffs. But sometimes that's just not the case. Now, again, it's only game 1. It's too early to really tell if that's the case or not right now. But you have a young team who's coming in with nothing to lose. All the pressure is really on the Astros. The Mariners, going back to when the season started, the Mariners were not supposed to be here. I mean, a lot of people, including myself, was hoping Mike Trout and the Angels or somebody, some kind of way, Ohtani and Mike Trout will finally get a chance to show off in the playoffs. But the Angels, that organization is just a joke. Free Mike Trout, but, hey, he's locked in financially. I wouldn't be surprised if he retired, as great as he is. Hit 40 home runs this season and only played like 119 games or something like that. But the Mariners were a team that I did not expect. No one expected to do this. But, again, when you have a young, hungry team sparked by a 21-year-old superstar who can do it all, and that's brought so much energy to that franchise, he has everyone, and not just him, other players on the team, the way they're coached and all that. They're a team that's basically playing with house money right now. So the Astros, now that's the dilemma sometimes too between, okay, the Astros got all this rest. They got, a good 4 or 5 days of rest or whatever. And whereas the Mariners, they come off a victory against Toronto in the wild card series where you saw they were down, I think, 8-1 at one point or something like that, and came back and won that game. So the bats are starting to roll. They're feeling good about themselves, and they're not going to be an easy out for the Astros. You take game 1 in Houston the way you did, and so now you know they're not happy with just one game. Of course, now they want to take 2 games. And, again, they're playing with house money. Now, that's the dilemma between having all that time off, getting a chance to set your rotation, get everything in order in that regard. You have a veteran-laden team, so, of course, you want them well-rested. You know they've been there, done that before, so you know the stage is not going to be too big for them, so it's not going to be a matter of them coming in not focused or anything like that. Hopefully the Astros – I wouldn't think Dusty Baker would let the Astros underestimate Seattle coming into this series and coming into this game in particular, even though they're playing at home. I don't think Dusty Baker – I want to believe that Dusty Baker was definitely in those guys' ears telling them to watch out for this buzzsaw. You saw what they were able to do against Toronto, a very young, promising team. a very, very young, promising team with some great talent on that team, and who many people thought at the beginning of the season may be in the position that the Seattle Mariners are in right now. So again, you have some good, timely hitting, some good pitching, and look where they are. Now the Astros are down in this series, 1-0, 0-1, however you want to call it. The Astros are down to the Seattle Mariners in this series. So they're going to have to draw from that experience. And again, the Mariners are playing with house money. They have nothing to lose. The Mariners are like, hey, we're not supposed to be here anyway. And again, they are just coming off a very, very emotional high, and they're riding that momentum from that last series. And that's what happens sometimes when, even though you're a veteran-laden team and you want that rest, you want to make sure your legs are fresh, you're dialed in, you sleep in your own bed, get some home cooking, all that good stuff, and you think you're going to be ready to go game one. Again, the momentum, now it takes you a while to get the momentum going. Now, you may see next game, at least I'm hoping for the Astros' sake and for us Astros fans, next game, the Astros, they come out there and they tied up in dramatic in big time fashion where the game is not even close. It's kind of really hard to watch baseball these days, inning for inning, because that anxiety gets going. If you're watching a team that you really, really care about, it's almost like sometimes it's like when they're actually playing defense and pitching, really don't want to watch that much. Maybe unless it's 2 outs or they're up 0-2. Classic case of front running in that regard as far as baseball is concerned these days. Sometimes, depending on if it's a team that I really, really care about. Sometimes I'll sit there and watch and be like, okay, who gives a damn or whatever. But I tell you this, but when they come to bat, of course, you're tuned in, you're dialed in, because now they control their own destiny as far as scoring runs, because at the end of the day, you have to score runs. But I don't like sitting through stressful pitching and all this kind of stuff where the pitcher is walking 2 and 3 batters, and it's like, man, talk to me when y'all get on offense or when y'all score a couple runs. I'll turn back and see what y'all doing. But as of right now, I got to go because I'm not about to sit here and watch this. But, hey, kudos to the Seattle Mariners. Just giving props where props do. And, again, with that young talent and that young tremendous superstar right there, hey, it's not going to be an easy feat. And I know we all, including myself, and most of the pundits, picked the Houston Astros to win it all again. This is not an overreaction. It's only one game. But for them to be able to do it in game one against Verlander, that's the Astros horse right there against Verlander. That says a lot, and that can go a long way in determining the outcome of this series. Again, now, the Astros, other pitchers, Javier, all the starting lineup that has been tremendous throughout the season. You bring up Hunter Brown. Now you have to dial in. You have to draw from that experience from last season, and you have to try to keep these Mariners off the scoreboard, because in the playoffs, again, it's about manufacturing runs, doing what you have to do, not being too aggressive when you shouldn't be aggressive, but just doing what you have to do. But at the same time, being yourself and playing the game that you know to play. But it takes a lot more mental fortitude to really get things done in the playoffs, because everything is heightened. Everything is heightened. The pressure is heightened. And it's not like the lull of a season where you just go through the entire season and you're just trying to make it from one day to the next. The hot days of summer and all this kind of stuff. Hey, those Dodger dogs are real good too out there in L.A. And the Dodgers played tonight against the Padres. The Padres were able to win that series, that wild card series that they had against the Mets. And the Mets, hey, so we'll see what happens in the next game for the Astros. Hopefully they can tie it up, and I think they will tie it up. But the Dodgers play the Padres tonight, and that should be a hell of a series, even without Fernando Tatis Jr. Even without him. Now the Padres, and again, they beat the Mets. You see what happens. You have Scherzer. You have DeGrom. DeGrom did his job. But Scherzer, and this is why This is why, and of course, we're going to talk a lot of NFL. Stay tuned. I say I'm going to talk a lot of NFL. Whatever you want to talk about, I guess you can send it in. I really don't. I know Facebook Live, you're supposed to be reading the comments and all that. I've never really done that. Sometimes Eddie, if he was here, he may read through them or whatever. But I'll catch you after the show or whatever, in that regard. And we're also on YouTube as well. But where was I going here? But we're going to talk about, I'm going to talk about some NFL, some college football. Of course, Draymond Green. And, again, kind of got thrown a curveball because I was expecting to banter back and forth. And so it's really no set script on where I'm going to go tonight. I'm just going to roll. That's what dogs do. Roof, roof, roof. Hey, but I'll tell you this. The Padres and the Dodgers tonight. Now Juan Soto is starting to find his groove. But what I was saying about the pitching for the Mets, and the Mets have been rolling all season. But I think what happened to the Mets, and this goes back to the pitching aspect of it. Okay, yeah, you did that in the regular season, but can you do it in pressure-filled situations? Can you keep your composure? And, of course, even the great ones are going to get toasted from time to time. That happens. But I tell you this, as much as I love Max Scherzer, and as much of a dog as Max Scherzer is, he's been injury-prone the last couple of years. He's won a World Series with the Nationals. First ballot Hall of Famer. We all know that. And I know the Mets, they were trying to, I know the Mets were coming into the season and they had just signed Francisco Lindor last season, who finally caught his groove this season. They brought on Buck Showalter, who was in the booth doing a great job, by the way. Used to love listening to him and Bob Costas. You're talking about a great, great listen right there. I'm talking about have you hanging on every word. Very knowledgeable of the game, and a guy that had experience, and they knew that he was going to be someone that can come in and possibly change the culture, develop a winning attitude, hold guys accountable. But again, Francisco Lindor finally hit his groove, and the Mets were balling all year. Had led the Braves, last year's World Series champs, as a matter of fact, had led the Braves most of the year, all the way up until, I think, May 3rd. As of May 3rd, had like a 10-game lead, something to that effect. The Braves were like 10.5 games back, if I'm not mistaken, and the Mets were rolling. And, of course, DeGrom and Scherzer, it took a while for DeGrom to get rolling because of an injury. But the Mets as a whole, as a team, were just rolling. Buck Showalter had these guys rolling. I think psychologically what happened to the Mets, I think the fact that the Braves walked them down, I think psychologically that really took something out of the Mets. And the Mets, they limped into the postseason kind of thinking to themselves, are we as really good as we think we are, even though we dominated most of the season and we have all these great players, because we just squandered a lead to a great team, by the way. Now, I'm sure Buck Showalter, I'm sure he was doing a great job of trying to keep these guys motivated. But when you blow a lead like that and you get walked down by a team like the Braves like that, psychologically, it could do something to you. And I think that's what it did to that Mets team. And I think it kind of brought them down a level to where they were just not clicking on all cylinders and were not really coming into the playoffs feeling real good about themselves the way things ended, even though they actually made it to the playoffs. They probably thought they should have been resting at the time that they were. But when they signed Max Scherzer, I said to myself, that's a whole lot of money. Of course, he's earned it, but of course, when you give a person that kind of money too, you're projecting that he's going to be that dominant pitcher moving forward for the length of time of that contract, at least for the guaranteed money part of it. And you definitely want to make sure. So I was surprised when they gave him that much money. But again, I know the Mets were trying to change things over there. He's one of the best pitchers in the game. But one thing I've always noticed, even when he was at his best, even with the Nationals, he's been prone in big games. Even though his track record, if you Google his track record as far as the postseason, he has a stellar track record. It's good, but he's been known a time or two. He will give up a solo shot or he will give up home runs. Gave up 4 home runs that first game. And that was ball game right there. That was demoralizing for the Mets right there. All the runs scored by All the runs scored against the Mets that game by the opposing team, were via the home run. And so Max Scherzer, as much energy as he expends, I said to myself, how much juice does he really have left in the tank? And it didn't surprise me when he was battling some of these injuries because of the torque that he puts on his body. And I just said the whole season, I promise I was saying to myself, what Max Scherzer, health-wise, are you going to get when you really need him most in the playoffs? Because he's been dinged up all year. He expends so much energy. What is he, like 37, 38 right now? We know these guys are pitching into their early 40s and they're dominant into their late 30s, and he's been dominant. But that's exactly what happened. Is he going to have a dead arm? And that particular game, hey, you see what happened. So the Mets were ousted by the Padres. So the Padres and the Dodgers tonight. And before we move on from baseball, of course, you have the Yankees, the Yankees, all these teams that, we'll talk more about some baseball next week after these games and these series really get rolling. But you all know my favorite player before we move on to some football action and whatnot. But you all know my favorite player. It's Bryce Harper. I said just last week, or the last time I was in here, the last time me and Eddie was in here, I said that, of course, when he fractured his finger, and he was playing at an MVP level at the time. Now, we're talking about last year's MVP in the National League, I might add. And before he injured that finger, fractured that finger, I said that, well, he was definitely playing at an MVP level again, even though he was just DHing because of the elbow situation, a slight tear in his elbow. So he'll probably DH. He will DH the rest of this season, no matter how long the season lasts. And then next season, he'll get back out in right field, give that arm a chance to heal or do what they have to do in the off season. But when he fractured that finger, I said he's going to come back with the bionic finger. And it didn't happen like that. Came back and all the way until the playoffs started, could not catch his groove, could not really get his timing back. Hey, baseball is a very hard sport. Hitting the baseball is the hardest thing to do in sports, in my opinion. Hitting the baseball. I heard my boy Joey Galloway, my ex-college teammate, I heard him say that fielding the punt is the hardest thing to do in sports, fielding the punt in the NFL or college or whatever, or at a high level. And I can see that too. But hitting the baseball, so it took him a while to get his timing back. But right when the playoffs started, he got it back. And even though, so of course, I said all that to say this. So of course, I quietly root for the Phillies because I'm not one of these guys that can have a favorite player, and I've never been like this. How you think I started liking the Cowboys, who we'll talk about coming up soon too, is because when I was a kid, my favorite player was Tony Dorsett. So that's how. So Kobe, the Lakers. So Akeem, the Rockets. So I don't see how you can have a favorite player and actually not want the team to succeed, because at the end of the day, it's about chips and it's about the ultimate team success, and that really shows your greatness right there. But didn't happen when he came back. But the Phillies were able to. And shouts out to Rob Thompson and the Phillies, who they've just extended for 2 more years, as well as they should. Now, you're talking about a team. He's the first manager, Rob Thompson, the fourth manager to take a team that's at least 7 games under 500 and lead them to the playoffs, to take over for a team that's at least 7 games under 500 and lead them to the playoffs. And that's what he was able to do. When he took over the Phillies, they were 22-29. And they've been something like 65, and they went something like 65 and 46 since then. But he has those, and so they took off that interim tag. And so he has those guys believing. He has those guys playing at a high level. Plenty of experience over there with the Yankees under George Steinbrenner. So here's a guy that the players definitely believe in. When he talks, I'm sure they listen because he comes from a wealth of experience and a wealth of knowledge. So, of course, if they're smart, I'm sure that's what they're doing. And so, hey, so they're just clicking right now. The Phillies are clicking right now, and it's a situation where Bryce Harper, since the playoffs had started, the first series, the Phillies that that game they scored 6 runs. 6 runs in the ninth inning against the Cardinals. And kudos to Albert Pujols for going over 700 for his career as far as home runs. Big-time career by him, and kudos to him for that. Even though, like I said, that 700 home run, it was a gopher ball. But I'm not going to rain on Albert Pujols' parade, though. Great player, first ballot Hall of Famer. But make no mistake about it, he was implemented as well. Make sure when y'all talk about that, make sure that the same way you do Barry Bonds, even though it wasn't highlighted as much, he was implemented in the steroid situation as well, or performance-enhancing drugs as well. Great of a dude as he is, great of a player as he was, maybe even before that, ever since he's coming to the league with the Cardinals. So great job. I mean, a great player, but make sure you get that same energy to that when you talk about Albert Pujols. So I'm talking about, you know who, the pundits and everybody like that. The same way you do with Barry Bonds. Make sure you do that. But kudos to him. Great career. And Yadier Molina. And hey, but what the Phillies were able to do, they really didn't do much hitting-wise in that series. But the surprising part of the Phillies were in that series, again, the playoffs is a different ball game. I mean, so everyone starts from zero. So no matter what you did in the regular season, hey, again, everyone starts from scratch right there. So it's a brand new season, and everyone has the same opportunity as the next team. And so that's how it goes. So, but what they were able to do, that ninth inning of game one, when it looked like they were down and out, and they were just going to be a team that made it to the wild card, and of course the relief pitching and the defense was not good enough, plus the way Bryce Harper, their superstar, is struggling right now, is not good enough where they're going to win a series. But like I said a couple of weeks ago, get in there and see what happens. So now he's clicking. So in that ninth inning, they scored 6 runs, shocked those St. Louis fans, and the Cardinals were never able to recover. And then 2 runs the next game. So in that 2-game sweep, the best 2 out of 3, in that 2-game sweep, 6 of their runs came in 1 inning. So the bats were not just, but that's what I'm talking about, situational hitting and just doing things to manufacture runs and at the most opportune times. And Rob Thompson has those guys playing at a high level. Now, again, if I had to be a bet man right now, just keeping it 100, you're listening to the Sports Court, the show where we keep it 100% of the time. If I had to be a bet man, I would think the Braves had that layoff as well, the same way the Astros did. And so both of these teams, you look at what the Mariners were able to do with coming off a big-time series where they rode that momentum. The Phillies, in game 1 at least, they did the same thing with the Braves, where the Braves, last series World Series champs, and a lot of people are picking them to win it all again. Them and the Dodgers, that's going to be I'm going to hold out before I make my prediction on that. I don't really know what's going to go on with the Dodgers pitching staff. I'll see how Kershaw looks. But right now, that's a pick 'em right there. And I would still go with the Braves right there. Hey, I'm really riding the fence on that right there. I don't know. But having said all that, because the Dodgers are so potent. And we know what the Dodgers can do. But they have their hands full with the hungry Padres team. But the Braves, last year's World Series champs, and again, 5 days off, got a chance to set their rotation, had Fried going today. And what the Phillies did, they rode that momentum from their series, beating the Cardinals, which they were not predicted to do, and beating the Cardinals and rode that momentum, and they stole game 1. Now they have it set up as far as the Phillies are concerned. Now they're feeling good about themselves, and today they were doing everything right. They were being aggressive, but at the same time, they were being opportunistic, and they were playing small ball as well, and they were doing what they had to do to move runners over. So both things were working for the Phillies today, as well as the pitching was stellar today. And the bullpen, even though they almost squandered it, it ended up being 7-6 when they had a 7-1 lead. But they got out the gates really early and often because of that momentum that they built. Bryce Harper went 3 for 3 today. And so he's finding his groove, at least it looks early on. And they have Aaron Nola going. Now they're set up with Nola and Zach Wheeler. So that's their 2 horses right there. So the Braves are going to have to pick themselves out up off the mat. And I honestly think the Braves will do that in game 2. It may get ugly in game 2. You saw the way the Braves have some serious, serious talent. It may get ugly in game 2 for the Phillies. But you got one. But you want to be greedy. Now you want to get 2. And again, you see B. Harper in that series against the Cardinals. Home run, yard work, about 463 feet. Hey, you're going to throw me a hanging curveball. Yeah, I know I've been cold, but you must forgot who I am. And here's some yard work for you. You just turn around. Outfielder, you turn around. You look that way because the ball is going over the fence. And so we'll see if that continues to happen as the series progresses. But, again, today I think he had a double. He was 3 for 3, and he did some things today. But the Phillies as a whole, as a team, did some things. So it's early. It's early in baseball, and we'll see what happens in those other series. We will definitely see what happens. Again, you're listening to the Sports Court. I'm Gregory Beatty in the building tonight. Skrilla Montana is in the building, and they're handling business. What's up? Grade A Media, Grade A Radio. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's all conjunction. It's all everybody scratch each other back. You know what I'm saying? With one common goal in mind. That's what's up right there. That's how we do it. That's how we roll. Nothing but dogs in this camp. But I'm going to tell you like this. College football, before we talk NFL, and again, before we talk, and if it's anything that I exclude tonight, NFL, hey, can't talk about everything that transpired. Trust me, I would love to. But if something doesn't get talked about tonight, it's not because I didn't want to talk about it. I guarantee that. Maybe just didn't get a chance to fit it in or for whatever reason. But, hey, we're going to get as much about what I think is relevant and leading into next week for the most part and just go from there. But college football, y'all know I got to bring up my Buckeyes. Really? What we doing here? Did you really think I wasn't? Hey, but I tell you this, my boy at work today, Spike was dead on though. He say, man, would y'all play somebody, please? Because he's a Bama fan. He say, would y'all play somebody, please? I said, you know what? I agree with that, bro. I agree with that. But I didn't make the schedule. They didn't make the schedule. But I do agree with that. But make no mistake about it. The Buckeyes have a great team. Now, make no mistake about that, but that's why you always see me being objectively speaking. I ride or die with the Buckeyes, win, lose, or draw. So I'm going to come pop my collar with the Buckeyes regardless. And when they take an L, I'm always right in here talking about why they took the L and what they can do to hopefully not take that L again. So that's how I roll. But I'll tell you like this, the Buckeyes against Michigan State, we all thought last season, as of last season, the season that Michigan State had last season, that we thought Mel Tucker would have those guys playing at a high level this year. It's just not the case. The offense is putrid. The defensive secondary is still putrid at best. And they just don't have the horses right now. And, of course, they lost their running back from last year, from the guy that transferred, Kenneth Walker III. He's not there anymore. He had a Heisman caliber season for them last season. He's not there anymore. And the Buckeyes we don't rebuild, we reload. Skrilla, we reload. And we reload we don't reload with a pop gun. We reload with an AK-47. Hey, and that's what happens. So I agree with this point, my boy Spikes, about Bama, because he said, man, Bama going to be beat up. They're getting beat up. Of course, Bama, we'll talk about Bama in a second. Bama has a very strong Tennessee team this week. But I couldn't disagree with him with that. But, hey, you play the teams who are in front of you. But as far as the Buckeyes, how it pertains to them, we know they have a great team. C.J. Stroud, he's going to win the Heisman Trophy this year, folks, barring injury, because, again, 6 touchdowns last game. I think the game before that, 6 touchdowns, just spreading the ball around. This is without the best wide receiver in the nation, preseason All-American Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's still out nursing a hamstring injury. But, folks, let me tell y'all something. There's a guy by the name of Marvin Harrison Jr. who I told y'all about before the season. We saw what he did in the Rose Bowl last year. We saw what he did in the Rose Bowl. 3 touchdown catches, dominated as a true freshman. 6'4", 210, big play receiver. He's not a possession guy. Big play receiver. Can take the top off of a defense. Can run any route. Has wiggle. Can catch anything in sight. So it's not a guy that, okay, well, you throw it his way, he may catch and he may not. No, if it's in his vicinity, he's probably going to snag it. You see that touchdown, he's probably going to snare it more times than not. You see that touchdown he came up with in the last game against Michigan State, where if he wasn't 6'4", he wouldn't have made that catch. But if it's in this area, he's going to bring it down more than likely. And he has that swagger. I love the fact the way he plays with that swagger. Now, I know his dad, the Hall of Famer Marvin Harrison, wore number 18, I think, and to each his own. To each his own. I see him rocking at 18. To each his own. But, man, put on a number 1 next year, bro, and do it like that. You're going to be All-American, so the proof is in the pudding. Hey, put on the number 1 next year, man, and rock it. He had on his Louis Vuittons a couple weeks ago. Swagger, but the game to match, though. The game to match. But not just him. Ibuka. Haven't said all that about Marvin Harrison Jr. Ibuka, number 2, he's probably on par to be first-team All-American. You have 2 wide receivers that's on your team right now who's probably on par early in the season to be first-team All-Americans, one on one side, one on the other, and the guy that should have been first-team All-American hasn't even played yet. I mean, with the Heisman Trophy winner. So we know what Ryan Day can dial up. So the Buckeyes are a great team, but he's saying that Bama's going to be beat up by the end and all this and that. Hey, they play in the SEC. That's probably going to be the case. But regardless, if Bama makes it, if they make it, which more than likely they will, they'll have a good month off before the playoff starts anyway. So that's not going to be an excuse because they'll be well rested by then. And, of course, Georgia is doing their thing. Georgia's ranked number 1. Now the Buckeyes are ranked 2. You know how they shuffle before the real BCS rankings come out. And it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter anyway until the season ends anyway, because all that I say about Ohio State, they still have to handle their business. And we can say what we will. One thing I've noticed this season about the Buckeyes is, other than that first game where they got out the gate slow against Notre Dame, and kudos to Marcus Freeman. Kudos to Marcus Freeman for getting his team back on track. Now they're 3-2, looking very respectable. Now that Notre Dame victory by Ohio State, now it's really starting to look like, okay, it probably meant something, because now Notre Dame is starting to find its footing, and they're starting to really understand what Marcus Freeman is trying to get them to do. And I applaud the guy for actually staying the course and going 0-2 and not getting down and bam, getting his team back on track where they should be. But the Buckeyes, you're going to have to play. They have the week off this week. They have a bye week this week. So they should be able to heal up. Travion Henderson, who rushed for over 100 yards last game, he should be able to get that foot more healed, and whatever kind of nicks and everything they have, they should be able to heal up. But then, you still have to play Penn State. Penn State, who beat a lowly Auburn team this year. Auburn will probably have a new head coach next season as well. Maybe Urban Meyer. I'm just saying. Maybe Matt Rule, who got fired from Carolina. I mean, you never know. He'll find another job. Trust me. Both of those guys will. But so you're going to have to play Penn State. You're going to have to play Iowa, who you can say Iowa, yeah, but like I said, you listen to the Sports Court, the show where we keep it 100% of the time. Barring any horrific snowstorm or something that's just where you're playing in a puddle of water, again, everything will still be equal for both teams. But unless it's something like that, Iowa has no chance against the Buckeyes, no foot speed. Penn State has a chance, and I'm sure Penn State would like to play on a muddy field with some rain and muck things up a bit. So all that fast pace, that pretty offense in motion, they can't get going and get their foot and muck the game up and get physical with them. Same thing Michigan did last year when the weather was bad out there in Ann Arbor. But the Buckeyes are clicking on all cylinders. The defense right now, even when those defensive backs. But one thing I was saying I like about Ryan Day this year, he hasn't ready to play. And they're not taking these games off, and they're not, taking these halves off. they're coming out ready to play ever since that Notre Dame game. Now they're more dialed in when the game starts, and they're front running. They're getting out to early leads, and that's what. But at the same time, I'm watching them play and put up these gaudy numbers and saying, yeah, well, they're really not playing anybody and all this and that. It's still poetry in motion. I still know talent and greatness when I see it. Now, will they be able to do that? What's interesting, when they were playing against Michigan State, I was sitting there watching the game, and of course, I was flicking blink, 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 trying to catch a few different games here and there. But of course, when the Buckeyes are on, they take precedence over any other game that's on. I don't give a damn if they're playing Boo Boo State. But I tell you this though. I was watching that game, and Georgia was on the other channel. And Georgia, who did Georgia play? But Georgia was on the other channel, and I was watching Ohio State, so it's funny. So when I'm watching Ohio State line up on offense, this was after they were dominating, and the score was pretty much out of hand, and now you can kind of kick back and watch the game in peace and kind of, it's all fine and dandy right now. I get it until you play somebody. But I was watching the game, and so when they were on offense and they were lined up, and I was sitting there drooling on the prospects of them winning a national championship with this high-powered offense and All-American running back, All-American receivers, Smith and Jigba be back. The defense is playing better. They're flying around, utilizing their speed, not blowing assignments as much as they were last year, more style against the run, and, of course, looking more sturdy, even against the teams that they've played. But they just seem like they're paying more attention to detail, and they're more dialed in, more focused. So I'm saying to myself, you accompany that with all the talent that's on this team and the way Ryan Day can dial things up and the way he can create mismatches and things of that sort. Now they're utilizing the tight end more. And I still think they should actually utilize the screen game more, incorporate that, because when you play a team like Bama or Georgia or somebody like that, or even Clemson for that matter, you better have that screen game going, because you're not going to be able to sit back there and be cute and sit there and easily pass for 6 touchdowns. It's going to C.J. Stroud, who will probably be the Heisman Trophy winner by that time, is going to be under a lot more duress. So you have to practice on what's going to work against that as well, even though you're not under that duress right now. Screen passes, they get sack happy, or they want to show all this athleticism and let me show you how fast we are. Mine Williams out the backfield, screen pass, run for about 10, 15. To the side, screen pass. To the right side, to the left side, screen pass. Travion Henderson, that'll humble the ass up. They start getting hit for 15 yards here, 20 yards there, and then you take your shots like that. But going back to what I was saying, it's interesting. I was sitting there watching the game, and I'm sitting there watching the Buckeyes. When they line up, and I'm like, okay, cool, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. Then, in an instant, I turn the channel to the Georgia game, and so I'm watching Ohio State lined up against Michigan State's defense, who they've been torching all night. Then, bam, I turn the channel to see what Georgia's doing, and Georgia is lined up, ready to go on the play, and they're lined up on defense. I said to myself, oh, okay, I get it. Okay, now that's a different story. You just look at them. It's just a bunch of, it looks like a pro team out there, man. A bunch of athletes. I mean, I turned the channel, click. Okay, now that's what Ohio State is going to have to deal with right there. But again, going to have to be physical. I like the physicality of the offensive line. But again, the speed in the SEC, everything is different. And as fast as Ohio State is, as great as they recruit, again, of course you have to take care of all you have to take care of in the Big Ten. I know that. You have to take care of Penn State. You have to take care Maryland is going to be tough. I think that's who they play after this bye week. You play Maryland. Maryland with Tua Tagovailoa's younger brother is playing in Maryland, quarterback, and he's talented. And they're well coached. And they caused Michigan some problems a couple weeks ago. But they're going to cause teams some problems because of that spread offense and the way they do things. And they just keep you guessing the passing game and keep you running around. And they're going to get some chunk plays here. So they're going to have to guard against that. And so a feisty Maryland team, Penn State, Franklin's going to have those guys playing. And then Michigan. Harbaugh has those guys undefeated. You see what they continue to do. Blake Corum, and even when the thing about Michigan this season, even when they're in close games, they're finding ways to win. And so Michigan is going to be physical. So Ohio State has to stay physical and prepare yourself. Keep physicality in mind to go. You're not just going to be a finesse team and win a national championship. Because when you play teams like Georgia, again, when I turned that channel and I saw Georgia lined up on the other side getting ready to play defense, that was a humbling experience. I'll be honest. That was a humbling experience. I said, because that's a whole different animal right there. That's a whole different animal. Same thing with Bama as well. So, but first things first, Ohio State has to handle business, but you have to be physical. In that game against Michigan at the end of the year, be physical. Don't let Harbaugh come in there and punk you around and run the ball and control the clock and just, come on now. Be physical, but at the same time, be innovative, be creative. And I think Ohio State has a chance to win the national championship. I really do. Hey, they've won it before. So I'm sitting there saying all this. I'm giving Georgia and Bama and the SEC their props, but don't get it twisted. I'm still picking my Buckeyes to get it done. I'm just saying it's not going to be as easy, and I'm sure they know that. But I think they have what it takes to get it done. And I like the way they're focused this year, and hopefully that continues. Hopefully that trend continues, and they don't have a slip up in the Big Ten before they get to the gauntlet. Now, as far as Georgia and Bama, you have Bama, who was able to beat Texas A&M this past weekend, and no surprise there. A&M, I mean, how many more victories can you get him? But I don't know how long Jimbo is going to last. Yeah, they had this great recruiting class coming in, but every year, I mean, you can look up and you can see all these games that they were in, and, look at the talent and all this and that. But what did they have, 4 or 5 losses? I mean, so they wanted to go to the SEC. You're going to have to play SEC ball and actually find a way to win your division in the SEC so you can do the ultimate thing of playing for the national championship. So, so the thing with Georgia and Bama is, and to my boy Spikes' point about they're going to beat up on each other, is the Pac-12 and the Big 12 are so good this season to where it's not automatic you're going to get 2 SEC teams in this year. I mean, because you have, if I'm not mistaken, you have the Pac-12 and the Big 12 have 4 and 6 ranked teams respectively. So what that's saying is, and of course, TCU and Oklahoma State, I think they play this weekend. What a great job Sonny Dykes is doing for TCU, has those guys believing, changed the culture over there. And so TCU, who were picked by many to finish 7th in the Big 12, now they sit and where now they can actually make a run to the college football playoffs. Again, you have Oklahoma State with Gundy, always steady. So the Big 12, so the thing that's probably that could end up hindering or coming back to haunt the greatness of a Georgia and Alabama and the dominance of those teams. Granted, they've had some close calls this year, mainly Bama, even without Bryce Young last week. But their backup quarterback was able to do some things with his legs. Wasn't passing the ball efficiently, but made the passes when he had to. This thing about Bama doesn't have any receivers now. Seems like to me some of the receivers are always walking into the end zone. I mean, I think when Bryce Young comes back, the receivers are a position on that team you're going to have to continue to worry about. Bama recruits 5 stars. so let's don't get it twisted about it, because every time I look up, they have a receiver walking into the end zone, and they're only gaining more confidence. But what I was saying about what could hinder them is the fact that the Big 12 and the Pac-12 are playing so well. Look at UCLA. Look at USC, what Lincoln Riley is doing. Look at what Chip Kelly is doing with UCLA. Nobody expected them to be 5-0 right now. So you have those 2 teams who are probably going – Utah is looking good after that early loss. You have those. So you have some viable options for the college football playoffs in the Pac-12 and the Big 12. So Georgia – so my point is, whereas in the past, Georgia or Bama, one of those 2 could probably have 2 losses and could probably still get in. It's probably not going to happen this year. So the way Bama keeps escaping these games, kudos to them, to their greatness. Of course, they have the greatest coach of all time coaching them. I mean, they're finding ways to win. But if they slip up at any point and lose during the regular season with that tough SEC schedule, I mean, Tennessee this upcoming week with Josh Heupel, Ole Miss is looking good, and then you go lose in the championship game or whatever, you're not getting into the playoffs. So that's something that could hinder not only Georgia and Alabama, is the success of these other teams, what these other teams are doing in the Pac-12 and the Big 12. And so we shall see. Now, of course, Bama, they have Tennessee, like I just said. They'll see if Bryce Young is going to come back this week with that strained shoulder joint. And I think they need him. I think they need him because against Tennessee, who we're talking about cultures and what Sonny Dykes has done at TCU, think about what the job that Josh Heupel has done. Think about the job that former quarterback at Oklahoma put up some big numbers. So very cerebral, knows the game, knows passing schemes, all that. Knows how to utilize weapons, utilize talent around him and what he has at his disposal. So Josh Heupel, when he got hired for that job, he said the main thing that he was going to do is, and Tennessee is on par, make no mistake about it. Tennessee, they've been down for a number of years. They're not the team that they were in the 90s and early 2000s where they were winning national championships and things of that sort and churning out great players year after year to the NFL. Don't forget the great Reggie White, Tennessee. I mean, I can go on and on and on. But we all know the tradition. We all know the tradition that the Tennessee Volunteers have. You can go all the way back to Phil Fulmer. And Josh Heupel has him right back there. When he got hired, he said he wanted to bring the fun. He wanted to bring this new age style back to Tennessee. He wanted to bring this style of fast-paced football on both sides of the ball. And that's exactly what he's doing. Actually, he's getting the best out of his talent. He's coaching them up. And, of course, you know the success he's having this season is only going to enhance the recruiting. So Tennessee, make no mistake about it, they're a team that you can call a blue blood. I mean, with tremendous tradition. They have Bama this week. So Tennessee is on, they can, at home, now they can actually make a run for the college football playoff as well with the way they're playing. So Josh Heupel has those guys clicking at a very high level, big-time quarterback play. Now, where it will behoove Bryce Young to play if he's healthy, obviously you know he's going to play if he's healthy. And you know Alabama and Nick Saban realize that he has to play in order for them to get that victory at Tennessee. But, excuse me, the Tennessee pass defense is shaky. They ranked toward the bottom. As far as defending the pass. Now, they're more stout against the run. They're more sturdy against the run. They can hold their own in the run game where they're giving up about 2.7 yards a carry in the run game. So I think, say what you will about Bama's receivers this year and everything like that. But, hey, what you do, you get the ball to those receivers, let Bryce Young do his thing, and Alabama has a great chance. They have a great chance because they're Bama anyway. But you have to pass the football against that secondary. And I think that would be a better thing to try to establish. Of course, you want to get physical. You want to establish the line of scrimmage and establish yourself on both sides of the ball early on. Let them know that you come to play. Let them know that it's going to be a battle in the trenches, and they're going to come on the losing end of it because you're going to bring that physicality and all this and that. But Bama still has those weapons. Utilize them. Utilize them in the pass game. And, of course, that all hinges on if Bryce Young is ready to play. But let me see something real quick. Bear with me real quick. Bama has a nice Nice. The transfer from Georgia Tech. Transfer running back for Alabama from Georgia Tech. That number 1. He can go. He can go. Jahmyr Gibbs, first rounder. First rounder. I won't forget his name again. Because he is special, folks. And I'm talking about, and when I say special, I'm always talking about how it would translate to the NFL. So there's a big play guy right there that Bama has. You can use him in the passing game. I mean, he reminds me, and of course the run game. Big play weapon, can take it the distance from anywhere on the field. Also good in the return game. But that shows you, I mean, that he comes in as a preseason All-American for Bama after transferring from Georgia Tech as a guy that hadn't even played for Bama yet, but preseason All-American from what he did at Georgia Tech. But dual threat type running back, 3-down running back, something that the NFL is going to covet because he can take it to the house in all facets. The return game, as a slot receiver, you could probably split him out at receiver. As a running back, of course, a big play waiting to happen. So that game right there is going to be very, very interesting. It all hinges on what Bryce Young does if he's able to play. But, again, I think Bama's best shot of beating Tennessee is to attack them in the passing game. And then I think one of Tennessee's I don't know the status on one of their defensive backs. Again, the defensive backfield hasn't been stellar as it is, even though the team has had tremendous success. And they fly around. They make plays. You know, they congregate to the football. That's the style that Bryce Harper wants to play. But his defense is not on par with what his offense is doing so far this season. But they're a team that's for real. They're legit. And Tennessee and Bama this upcoming weekend. Real quick before – stay tuned. We're going to talk some NFL. We're going to get a little bit of NBA in there. Of course, the regular season in NBA starts October the 18th. So, of course, as the season gets going, of course, then going to talk plenty of NBA. You know that. You know we're going to talk those main 3 sports and then touch on a few more things, you know, whether it's golf, whether it's boxing, of course, whatever. And every now and then hockey. Well, that's only been once since I've been on the show. But maybe start incorporating hockey a bit more from time to time. I mean, but, of course, hockey is nowhere in sight right now. But University of Texas, what they did, again, stay tuned. You listen to the Sports Court. I'm Gregory Beatty in the building, in the place to be on this beautiful Tuesday evening. Glad to be here. And, hey, hope everyone is well. Thanks for tuning in. Who's ever tuning in, appreciate it. But the University of Texas, 49-0 over Oklahoma. Skrilla, Montana, 49-0. I'm talking about the most lopsided score in that red rivalry history. And I'll say it like this. Now UT, that game right there, now they're 3-2. And say what you will. Now, Oklahoma, Brent Venables, who's been known as a defensive coach. Of course, we know the success he had at Clemson. Was without his starting quarterback, Dillon Gabriel. Got off to a good start in the season. But I don't think Dillon Gabriel would have made a bigger difference in this game right here. Because it seems like now we're talking about a UT team with tremendous talent. I enjoy watching that team. I really do. And I think they can be a damn good football team. They showed that against Oklahoma. Now Oklahoma is 0-3 in that conference right there. They're giving up in those 3 games. They're giving up over 587 yards a game, something like that. So UT, it really makes you wonder now, and even on a national scale, if they can run the table, and depending on what some of these other teams do and how things shake out in the Big 12 and this and that. Now that moral victory in Alabama, especially if Alabama continues to win on and now that moral victory in Alabama, if UT can ride this momentum and win out, and depending on how things shake out in the Big 12, now that moral victory is almost like a victory. I mean, even though it counts as a loss, but because a lot of people feel if Quinn Ewers, who was back, including myself, if Quinn Ewers, now I'm still not going to say that they would have beaten Alabama in that game because you have to remember, Alabama, Bryce Young happened. Bryce Young happened. And that's what really happened in that game. And Alabama kind of woke up and was like, okay, enough is enough. But the way Quinn Ewers was playing, now it gives you room to speculate, especially if UT can ride this momentum right here, just how good is UT? Because probably should have and could have beaten Alabama, have the best running back in the nation in Bijan Robinson, have an All-American at wide receiver in Xavier Worthy, and you see what the reemergence, the insertion of Quinn Ewers, inserting him back into that lineup after that shoulder injury, which he was out for 3 weeks. You see the difference in that team, just the confidence. And that's why I said that loss to Bama. Now, that's why I said if they can win from there on out. Now, I think they lost that next week to Texas Tech or something. And so Texas Tech, who gives teams a lot of problems. But, again, if UT can win out. But that's why I said if, of course, Quinn Ewers getting hurt, how much was that going to deflate UT? And if he wasn't out for a long, long period of time, and if he can come back from that injury, I was pleased when I saw that it wasn't broken and he was out for the season. So you reinsert him back into the lineup, and that looks like a different team. I mean, utilizing all the weapons at his disposal, it opens up the playbook for Sarkisian. Now he can do whatever he wants. Again, you have the best running back in the nation in Bijan Robinson. And Bijan Robinson, before I talk about Quinn Ewers, Bijan Robinson, I just enjoy watching him play. You've heard me talk about it on past shows, but I know special when I see it. And Bijan Robinson is special. 220 pounds, can catch the ball out of the backfield. I'm talking about herky-jerky. He's better than Travion Henderson for my Buckeyes. Travion, he's a dog when he's healthy, but he's more of a straight line, slasher who can take the top off. I mean, he can take you to the house. He can help you in the pass game as well. That's why I say still use him in the pass game. Don't lose sight of your running backs if you're a Buckeye coach. But Bijan Robinson, man, I'm talking about, he makes the best 5-yard runs, and he has the breakaway speed at 220 pounds. I just think he's special. But he has the best 5-yard runs, can make you miss, can make anybody miss. 2 or 3 defenders miss within 5 yards in traffic. I mean, always falling forward, can catch the ball out of the backfield. He is a weapon. In my opinion, he's a top 10 pick. He's a top 10 pick if you're really going to be one of these people who say that the offense is really what matters right now. And, of course, if you have a special running back in the backfield who you can utilize on 3 downs, you can control the clock with, he can take it to the house from anywhere on the field, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield and do damage. The objective is to score points, last I thought. So you're not going to find too many running backs that's as special as Bijan Robinson. You have to know special when you see it, and you can't operate by this mantra, well, we can find a running back in the 4th round. No. Bijan Robinson is that guy. But back to Quinn Ewers before we move on to some NFL. Bijan Robinson, Quinn Ewers, and Bijan Robinson in that backfield, and with Xavier Worthy, with Sark calling the plays, with the defense flying around, and that's why I said after that Bama game, what is it going to do to them mentally? Because if they were able to win that game, and even with Quinn Ewers out, psychologically, I think that really would have boded well for them, even though they're running out of gas. But they didn't run out of gas this time. 49-0, and they played it all the way through, both sides of the ball, dominating, utilizing their talent. They're feeling good about themselves. Because, 2, they also see that they have a quarterback right now who's special. Let's just call it what it is. And I don't throw that word around loosely, trust me. But Quinn Ewers is special too. And so that's the point I'm making. That's why I always bring up UT, because I know how dangerous they can be if they're clicking on all cylinders. Now, I don't know, maybe those 2 losses, no matter what, they may keep them out this season. Of course, you're not going to have Bijan Robinson next season. But Quinn Ewers can make every throw on the field, pass for 289 yards, 4 touchdowns. 3 of those touchdowns came, I think, in the 3rd quarter. But It just opens up the playbook, man. And he can make any and every throw. He has the swagger. And I think, hey, the guy is now, I'm going to say this before I move on. And I've said it before. And I know Arch Manning, he has to finish his high school career. I get it. But just looking forward, since he's a Manning, Arch Manning, Archie is his name. He goes by Arch. Of course, his grandfather's name is Archie. Played at Ole Miss. But Quinn Ewers, barring injury, is going to go into next season as a Heisman Trophy candidate. Let's just call it what it is. He's going to go into next season as a Heisman Trophy candidate. And you say to yourself, okay, so what are you saying? What I'm saying is how it relates to Arch Manning is and Arch Manning probably could care less about playing as a true freshman. He's probably my point is if he wants to continue on that same path as his grandfather, his two uncles, of being that highly touted Manning and starting as a true freshman, you may want to reconsider going somewhere else. Maybe Ole Miss, maybe Bama. Bryce Young will be gone because Quinn Ewers, and I know NIL deals go into it and all this and that, and I know again, he probably could care less. But any of you Arch Manning fans, and I'm one of them. I'm a Manning fan, period. But I'm also a Quinn Ewers fan as well. And I told y'all right after Arch Manning committed to UT, I said, we'll see. Because I'm the one who called it about Quinn Ewers transferring last year. After I saw C.J. Stroud. After I really saw him, I said, oh, okay, Quinn Ewers is gone. I called it on the show, and he ultimately left and transferred. And that's what happened. But if you're Arch Manning and you want to play as a true freshman, barring injury, that's not going to happen at UT. It's not going to happen. Quinn Ewers will go into next season as a Heisman Trophy candidate. So just something to think about if you're a Manning or if you're a Manning fan and you're thinking you're going to see, yeah, it looks cute. Oh, Manning, he's not going to vote for the SEC. He's going to be in this legendary burnt orange and the tradition of UT. If he can bring it back like Vince Young, you're going to have to wait another year. I'm going to just tell you like that because Quinn Ewers is not going to relinquish that job. Again, one last time, he will go into next season as a Heisman Trophy candidate. So what does that mean for Arch Manning if he wants the optics of looking like he's coming in and doing all these wonderful things as a true freshman? Just something to think about. But, of course, UT, they have, I think, Iowa State this upcoming weekend. So we'll see how that transpires. But I picked UT in that game, of course. Really not any much more college football I really want to talk about. I just love watching college football. See, college football comes before Sunday. So I'm all in on Saturday with the college football. And I know it's a lot of teams that I hadn't really talked about. And you know, but I try to bring up as many relevant teams as possible. And we'll see how things we'll see how things shake out as the year progresses. And I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful upcoming weekend. Now, the Texans, moving on to some pro football talk, the Texans got their first victory. I thought Eddie was going to be in here, not bragging about the Texans getting their first victory. He knows the Texans will probably get the first pick this year. My boy BT texted me Saturday. He said, and y'all know Brett, my boy Brett that's been on the show, our good friend of the show, Brett Thompson, that's been on the show. And will probably be on, may just be on next week with us, as a matter of fact. But he texted me Saturday. He was like, "Hey, GB, man." He's like, and he's a big-time Texans fan. I want C.J. Stroud. I'm sold because you know it's always been about C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young. And even though I'm a Buckeye through and through, big-time C.J. Stroud fan, and hey, he'll probably win the Heisman this year. But sometimes I wonder. And nothing against the late, great Dwayne Haskins. And I say great. He was great at Ohio State. He was getting his life on track with the Pittsburgh Steelers under great tutelage with Mike Tomlin doing all the right things, becoming more of a leader, and tragically lost his life in an accident, a tragic accident. But the only thing with Ohio State quarterbacks sometimes is sometimes I wonder if they're a product of the system. Ryan Day is such a great play caller. Sometimes I wonder if they're a product of the system. I'm just being honest right there. Now, I still assess each quarterback on their talent level. And, of course, Justin Fields, I still think is going to be a great quarterback. But, man, he has nothing to work with. This question about if he's their franchise quarterback, yeah, he is. So the fact that you're not surrounding him with anything, I mean, what does that say about you all? But I think that would be a miss by Chicago if they just give up on Justin Fields because they haven't put anything around him. So I'm not ready to judge him on what he can do just yet. He's shown flashes, but that team right there is just – he has nothing. He has nothing. And, of course, I'm sure there's some things he can do better, but, hey, I'm going to hold out on Justin Fields before I throw him to the dogs. I'm serious because I still think Justin Fields can be great. And C.J. Stroud, we'll see. I mean, can make every throw on the field. My boy Brett was like, and what he pointed out was that he likes his mechanics, and which is true. I've noticed his mechanics. I mean, he does a lot of the right things, and he's coached up well by Ryan Day, and he's more elusive than people give him credit for. Can make every throw, every arm angle, accurate, and he looks the part. He looks the part. And, again, more athletic than people give him credit for. So BT was like, hey, man, I would love to have him. That's who I want as our quarterback for the Texans. So, real quick, give me 20 seconds right here. Hey, Skrilla. Yeah, though, as I was saying, as I was saying, yeah, so I hope he's not a product of the system. Right now, seems like he has mental fortitude. They say he's a great leader, hard worker, and has all the characteristics to be a franchise quarterback. So BT was saying that he's made this decision, and he thinks it's C.J. Stroud. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to be objective. I love C.J. He's going to win the Heisman this year. It's something about Bryce Young, man, just the things that he's been through already and the competition that he's played against and the way, just his swagger, man, the way he plays the game reminds me of a young Russell Wilson. Don't get me started on that. Probably won't have time today to visit that Denver situation again. But Bryce Young, it's something special about Bryce Young. He's a winner. He's competitive. It's just something about his game that just his intangibles that I like a lot. Now, of course, C.J. Stroud is your more prototypical 6'3" quarterback, big arm, but of course, Bryce Young is more mobile, can make every throw, great leader. Hey, so we'll see. But he say he's sold on C.J. Stroud, and I would love for C.J. Stroud to be the first pick by the Texans, but I'm not going to sit here and say that, hey, man, I'm not going to – Bryce Young, we'll see what happens with that shoulder. But right now, CJ is balling, going to get that Heisman right there. But happy for Lovie Smith. Let's move on right here. Happy for Lovie Smith. Lovie was able to get that win, and the Texans and maybe should have a couple more wins under their belt right now. Obviously, they do not have that, but happy for Lovie. Of course, I'm a Cowboys fan, and we'll talk about them in a second. Stay tuned for that. Again, you listen to the Sports Court. I'm Gregory Beatty. But they better give a thanks. Now, Damien Pierce is a dog. Damien Pierce, he's a young Earl Campbell, the way he runs. Now, of course, Earl Campbell, Hall of Fame legend, all this and that. But Damien Pierce, I'm talking about his style of running. He is physical. Some of these running backs, man, I watched Josh Jacobs last night as well. Some of these running backs who are built low to the ground, these stocky running backs, 215, 20 pounds, and they're hard to bring down. You're not going to bring them down with an arm tackle. And Jacksonville, who've not beaten the Texans, I think, in the last 13 tries, that's just crazy. I think, if I'm not mistaken, something to that effect. Of course, But Damien Pierce, what he's able to do in that run game is tremendous. But the Texans, they're going to need a franchise quarterback. I know I've talked about Davis Mills as somebody that I think could develop into that, but I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see that dog in him. I don't see that swagger in him. I don't see that competitive fire, and not that everyone has their own personality. You don't have to be a rah-rah guy, but I just don't see at the end of games where you take control of your team, you take command of things, you put a team on your back where you have the team believing in you, everyone gravitates to you. I don't see those leadership qualities by Davis Mills, and I think the Texans will definitely be in the hunt for a franchise quarterback who they believe can be that guy. But Damien Pierce definitely in the run game, and of course you saw Stingley was able to get his first interception, and so they have some young talent on the defense side of the ball, but they're going to have some growing pains this year. What's going to be interesting is if Lovie Smith is because in order for them to get the high draft pick, Lovie Smith is going to have to lose. So it's going to have to be, hey, will Lovie Smith survive? And I'm not one of these guys who just think it's automatic they bring Lovie back. I mean, they'll use him as a scapegoat and draft a quarterback, and they'll say they want to start brand new with a more offensive-minded coach and hire a new offense coordinator as well, where the coach will hire, this pass-happy league. Now then they'll draft a couple of more receivers, and Lovie will be out the door. Trust me. So you Texans fans who are pro-Lovie Smith, and, of course, I like me some Lovie Smith as well, who I want to see the brother succeed, but he may be the scapegoat this year, and the Texans are not going to make any apologies for it once they do it, because you know what happens in the minds of people like that when it comes to business like that. And, okay, yeah, we made the fans mad, blah, blah, blah. Of course you want your ticket sales and all this and that. We all know what the Texans have been like as far as you see the Deshaun Watson fiasco, who's been okay to come back into the building with Cleveland, but that's a story for another day. He still can't practice, I think, until November or something like that. But we all know how the Texans have conducted business in the past as far as really not giving a damn what the fans think. So if they oust Lovie Smith, the Texans' attitude, you might as well get ready for it. And the fans, they're all, everybody on Twitter and all these radio stations. The Texans' attitude, they'll get over it. They'll get over it. They're going to have to. They'll get over it. And so I'm telling you all right now, you diehard Texans fans, Lovie may be the scapegoat. I'm telling you right now. So, but the Texans were able to get that victory. Good for him. Good for him to get off the schneid right there. And you better give thanks to Trayvon Walker, the number 1 pick of the aforementioned Georgia Bulldogs. You're talking about a stupid play. What was he thinking? And I know that was probably uncharacteristic of him. You're talking about that's what actually got the penalty. Well, we'll talk about a couple of those situations here in a second too. But, of course, they got the penalty. But that penalty was warranted right there. What was Trayvon? They pretty much gift-wrapped the Texans the ball game right there. And after that fast start by Jacksonville, I still think they're headed in the right direction with Chris Peterson. But 2 losses back-to-back where of course, the game before the Texans game was played in the Mud Bowl, a bunch of slop. But Trevor Lawrence turned the ball over 5 times. And Chris Peterson, I still think he has them going in the right direction. Trayvon Walker, that unnecessary roughness, which would have got them off of the field and given Jacksonville a chance to come back down and score, that could have been the dumbest. That definitely was one of the dumbest penalties I've ever seen. But you know what I think it probably was? And here's where I'm sure, hopefully, he will learn from that, because they say it's uncharacteristic of him to do something like that. You have another guy over there, another defensive player, Devin Lloyd, that's getting a lot of all the hype over there and could be Rookie of the Year. And Trayvon Walker, even though he's not playing bad, had a game earlier this year where I think he got a sack and maybe a fumble recovery. But the guy getting all the attention is a rookie by the name of Devin Lloyd. And you're the number 1 overall pick. And even in that game, I don't think he had any sacks up to that point. And I think he just got frustrated with the fact, and he wanted to get in the news. He wanted to get in the news, and it was at the detriment of his team, and it cost his team dearly. But let me say this before I move on. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the Texans. And it's a few more other games or players I want to talk about, and want to mention the Draymond Green situation before I get up out of here and things like that. But But um, Trayvon Walker right there in that situation, man, you can't do that. But Trevor Lawrence, and you all know I've been very high on Trevor Lawrence since he was at Clemson, a freshman at Clemson. But the more I watch Trevor Lawrence, and I still think he has a tremendous upside. Started out the year doing some positive things, but Trevor Lawrence and cerebral, they don't go in the same sentence. I'm finding that out. Not saying that he's a dumb guy, but you're talking about he doesn't make the most sound decisions. And I know that was his 21st start and all this and that, but some of the decisions he makes are mind-boggling. I mean, it really is. I mean, his lack of concentration and focus, I know he gets into the press conference and he says all the right things to try to disarm you, and it's going to sound compelling, and it's going to be thought-provoking, and it's going to be something where you could be like, okay, hey, baloney. Trevor Lawrence needs to play better. I don't give a damn if he can make every throw. If I don't care if he's the next Roger Staubach and can make every single throw on the field, but his decision-making is so suspect. And it really makes me wonder about his mental ability as a quarterback and even moving forward, even under the tutelage. Now, granted, you go through these experiences and hopefully he has the wherewithal to learn from this, but it doesn't seem like he is. Just bonehead play after bonehead play. And that interception, why would you throw that ball right there? The interception, you throw it right to Derek Stingley right there, and you're right there on the goal line. And it just, game after game, he makes these decisions, or he does something where he's just not dialed in and focused. His accuracy is very suspect. We know about his arm talent, his arm strength. I mean, but hell, when he releases the ball, you don't know where it's going to go. You don't know where it's going to go. I mean, if you're a Jacksonville fan and when he releases the ball anywhere, hell, not even anywhere downfield, if he just releases the ball, you have no idea where it's going to go, where it's going to land up. It's going to look good. It's going to have zip on it. He's going to show it off the arm talent. It's either going to skip in front of somebody or be off over here or be off over there. And, man, I mean, he needs to step up. Now, moving on, the Cowboys. My Cowboys. What a big-time victory that was. What a big-time victory that was over the Los Angeles Rams this season. Last week. The Los Angeles Rams are putrid right now. And I've used that word a number of times tonight. And I'm going to use it again. The Los Angeles Rams are putrid. The Los Angeles Rams this year are suspect. They're the defending world champs. But even last year, I'll tell you, just from the eye test, when I was watching that game, I know Odell had went out with that injury. But even last season, watching them play, and of course they lost Von Miller as well, and we saw what he was able to do for that defense over there. It freed up a lot of players, but even when I was watching them last year when they won it all, I never had the feeling throughout their whole run that they were a team that was going to repeat. I always thought that was going to be like a 1 year, okay, they got their chip. That's it. Now you accompany that, you lose Von Miller. Your running game is stagnant. It hasn't got off to anything right now. Cam Akers, the linemen, you don't have anybody blocking the linemen are not doing a great job. So no matter what kind of innovation and no matter what Sean McVay has in his arsenal, he can't utilize it. Because the Rams, and then you have Matthew Stafford. Told you about that elbow. I don't think that elbow is right. You don't have Odell Beckham Jr. Everything is predicated on Cooper Kupp. So you accompany that and no run game. But I never thought they were going to be a team that ran it back. I never did. Even if they would have kept Von Miller. They just didn't come across Jalen Ramsey. He's a damn good cornerback, but he gets burnt a lot. You know, so what impact does he really have on the game at the end of the day? He may be shutting down a man here and there, but if you have a team that really wants to go at Jalen Ramsey and they have a receiver you just go at him. You're gonna make plays against Jalen Ramsey. He may make a play on you too. But so the Rams, but the Cowboys defense Now, I know I was in here when the season started after that loss that I was like, hey, they're done. Along with a lot of other people, I said they are done. But I also said that let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Hey, if they change my mind, they change my mind. But I have to see it. Right when I saw that defense step up the next game. And so now they're 4-1 with Cooper Rush. And I made this statement. We all made this statement. People that counted the Cowboys out. Of course, banking on the fact that Dak Prescott was out as well for the foreseeable future. After that initial loss to start the season, that Dak was out as well with a broken finger. So you look that bad against Tampa Bay, but the defense, Dan Quinn has those guys flying around. I'm talking about making plays, and it's not a fluke. That's why I want to see them, week in and week out. Even after the first game, I knew they had a good defense even last season, but that defense is dominant. And I'm talking about they can come at you from all angles. The defensive backfield is playing at a high level. Of course, that's because of the pass rush. I mean, think about it. I mean, Malik Hooker finally got an interception. Of course, it was the Steelers game, but that was because of the tremendous pass rush. And I've been saying, and as far as Malik Hooker, and I'm going to bring his name up again, former Ohio State Buckeye, former first-round draft pick who started at free safety for the Cowboys, who's been flying under the radar, came into the league, was a first-round draft pick, like 17th overall, I think, for the Indianapolis Colts, battled some injuries, Achilles, blew out his knee one year, came in with the same kind of expectations, well, not in the return game as Ed Reed. Ed Reed was a tremendous punt returner as well, but was a ball hawk type free safety, and I said he's going to be a superstar in the NFL. But Dallas picked him up after he dealt with some injuries in Indy. Things didn't work out, changed the scenery. Now he's a couple years removed from that injury, and he's manning that free safety position. But I've been saying, when is he going to make that play? When is he going to show that range that made him so special in college, where you threw anything in his vicinity, he was coming up with it. Very athletic, all that kind of stuff. Probably doesn't have that same athleticism after an Achilles and a knee injury. But obviously it's something that Jerry Jones and that coaching staff sees in him. And even though he didn't make a lot of plays last season, but they kept playing him, kept him on the field. And I've heard Jerry Jones say, in practice, he's showing that potential. Now, he's like 27, 28 now, I think it is. So these next 2 or 3 years, and that's all the Cowboys want, have 2 or 3 great years at a peak level, be that free safety we think you can be to go along with Trayvon Diggs. But he got that interception. But I've been saying, when are you going to make a play? When are you going to make a play, Malik Hooker? When are you going to be that guy that when Trayvon Diggs gets beat, which happens from time to time because he gambles a lot, when are you going to be that free safety where you make the quarterback hesitate to even throw that direction anyway because you're roaming, because you can cover so much ground? So maybe that interception, even though it was thrown right in his wheel basket, he just had to make a move here and there to track it down. But hopefully, because if you show up that back end to go along with that pass rush, and what Michael Parsons does, and again, I say it again, and I promise every time I get in here, I'm not going to toot my own horn about how I was the first one to notice Michael Parsons and say the Cowboys should draft him when Michael Parsons was on no one's radar. I saw him play at Penn State because, remember, he didn't play his senior year. He sat out with COVID, so he was on no one's radar. But I saw him against Ohio State when he played his junior year, and I watched 2 plays. I said, that guy's special. He's special. He's special. That's what I said. And he's proven to be the case. And I said last year when the season started, he's baby LT. He's baby LT. And so that's what it is. But Michael Parsons got 2 more sacks in that last game. And what he does, he frees up everybody else. What did I say when they first drafted him, when they did take him? Because I said before the draft, if he's there, I don't care who's on the board. You take Michael Parsons, because you saw what Devin Bush had did a year earlier with Tampa in that Super Bowl, just what he did for that defense and how he elevated their energy and how he just elevated the team. If your defense is playing at a high level, we all know defenses win championships. If your defense is playing at a high level, that's going to give the offense even more confidence because they know it's a team game now. They know they have someone who can have their back and vice versa. So but Michael Parsons, I said, you draft him because what he's going to do, and I remember his first press conference, and what I came on here and said that I like, what I heard him say, and he's marketable, has a big-time personality, plays for the Dallas Cowboys. You already see the media trying to hype him up. But, of course, he has the talent to go along with it. So that's it more than anything right there. He's a beast. He's a monster. He's a monster. Now, but what he said in that initial press conference was that they asked him, what's his biggest asset or what's his approach to the game? He said, see ball, get ball. See ball, get ball. And when I heard that, I said, I love him. I love him. That's right. And again, a guy with a big-time personality. So get ready, folks. He's going to be in the media a whole lot, Michael Parsons, because he's producing. He's producing as well. But he's freeing up everybody else. DeMarcus Lawrence is healthy. That interior line, now they're using that quickness. You know, it allows Dan Quinn to put them in certain situations because you have to account for Michael Parsons. And he had 6 sacks. He got 2 last game. Win a couple of games without a sack. And the mark of a great player, even though your team is winning and you're this sack master, I mean, you can go back to LT, you can go back to Derek Thomas, you can go back to T. Sizzle, say who you will. Those true sack masters who Strahan, the list goes on and on. Reggie White, Bruce Smith, whoever. Those true sack masters, no matter if their team wins, if they don't come away with a sack, they're raving. They're foaming at the mouth to get back and actually play their next game and try to get back on the board as far as sacks are concerned. So he has 6 sacks right now. But what he does, think about the quarterback pressures that he has, even when he's double teamed. Aaron Donald, probably the greatest defensive player of all time, one of them for sure, and he had 2 sacks as well for the Rams, showed his dominance. But Michael Parsons, he's like, hey, I can do it too. I can do it too. Now watch this. And that's what he did. He went out there, made the sack to seal the game, but with the hurt groin. Now one thing in his comparison to LT that I will say to this point that I've assessed, and now, of course, Michael Parsons is great in coverage as well. Not necessarily great, but he can hold his own because he runs a 4-3. He can run with anyone. But of course, you want to utilize him, and you want to have him running around the whole field and rushing the quarterback, and of course. But what I thought he would do was infuse some energy in that defense once they drafted him. But what I will say about the comparison to LT with Michael Parsons that I've realized or that I've noticed up to this point, Parsons probably going to be Defense Player of the Year if he stays on this trajectory. And of course, I think LT was a bit more dominant in the run game. When LT was first with the Giants, his first couple of years, and LT could drop back in coverage too. Remember, LT has a couple of interceptions for touchdowns where he took it to the house. But of course, the more shifty running back skill type of guy, if he gets the ball in his hands, actually played running back in high school, is Michael Parsons. Runs a 4-3, as dominant of a beast as LT was. But I think LT was probably, to this point, more dominant in the run game. Those first few years with the Giants with LT and Harry Carson and Banks, I just remember seeing him looking like they were wearing those practice jerseys. And all I can remember, of course, I was a young kid at the time, big-time Cowboys fan, but I just remember them just dominating. I just remember that number 56 just running around, just dominating, chasing running backs down, rushing the quarterback. So I think in the run game, up to this point, not saying that Michael Parsons isn't great in the run game or that he can't do it, but I think in that comparison, I think as far as a pass rusher, he's on par with LT right now. You can look at the numbers from the first couple of years. Of course, there were different circumstances. They didn't pass as much back then, so there were less opportunities for LT as well. the best defensive player, the best linebacker to ever play the game. Make no mistake about that. But LT was dominant in that run game. I think once Michael Parsons decides to really, really not just save himself for pass rushing situations, and a lot of times they don't have him in on running situations as well. But once he becomes really that guy that's just, I'm talking about just dominating. I'm talking about no matter who you give the football to, he's chasing them down. And he does that from time to time. I just think LT was more consistent in that regard in the run game up to this point. But Cooper Rush, what can I say about Cooper Rush? Now, of course, have the Eagles this week. See how I am on time. See how I am. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna do my thing until I'm ready to leave up out of here. So I'm gonna do it for the next 10 to 15 minutes, and I'll finish when I finish up in here. But yeah, got the Eagles coming up this week. The Eagles are 5-0. I mean, you look at real quick before the Eagles are 5-0 right now. That game is going to be, they're playing in Philly. Jalen Hurts playing at a very, very high level, a very, very high level right now. They can click. They're clicking on all cylinders. The Eagles, team camaraderie, all this and that. Cooper Rush. Hey, kudos to Cooper Rush. Great job. I want to credit him for a job well done up to this point because what he's done in the absence of Dak Prescott has been tremendous. Of course, he's played within the system. Barely only threw for 100 yards last game. And so that's why I think to beat the Eagles, you're probably going to need more of a passing game. Not that he can't do it, but I think if Dak is healthy, you play him and you give him an opportunity because it opens up the playbook. And, of course, you still stick with the running game. The running game has been dominant. I like what they're doing on the offensive side of the ball. Credit to Mike McCarthy, the way he's been coaching this season up to this point. I can't come in here and dog Mike McCarthy right now about anything. He's doing a tremendous job. Hell, maybe on par for Coach of the Year, as a matter of fact. But great job by him and great job by Kellen Moore. But what did I say before the season? What have I been saying? Stick with the run game. You have to commit to it. Me and Eddie was up in here and we were talking, and I was like, I don't care. Dak is making all this money, all this and that. His chance of success heightens when he utilizes the run game more because I just think that's best suited for what Dak Prescott does. He's not this Patrick Mahomes and all this and that, who we'll talk about in a second as well, real quick before we get out of here. But if Dak is healthy, you playing. But you can also go this route. If you start the game with Cooper Rush, if you want to ride that momentum with Cooper Rush, you're going to have a plan in place for sure. But and you tell Dak, well, see how the game goes. If it's obvious that the run game is not going to be effective in putting points on the board against Philly, and Phillies and Jalen Hurts with his maneuverability is giving the Cowboys some fits because he's got, we'll see what the Cowboys defense can do against a mobile quarterback in that regard. I think the Cowboys defense can hold up. It's all about Dan Quinn and what he dials up. But Jalen Hurts is going to be a different animal. And they have some weapons at their disposal. And they have a great offensive line, great defensive line. But if Cooper Rush, if he starts the game and it's obvious that the passing game is not clicking for whatever reason, maybe Cooper Rush, because he's not as mobile as Dak Prescott, maybe Philly is not giving him enough time in the pocket to get some things done to where he can be efficient like he's been and things like that. And then you insert Dak Prescott and you be like, okay, go get it done. Of course, he has to be able to take the snap and he has to be healthy enough to do it. But I think that's one way you could do it, to see how the game goes and see how Cooper Rush looks, see how the offense is moving the ball, if they're scoring points. But if you're going to need a passing game in this game. You're not going to totally be able to rely on the run. So look forward to that game. Of course, definitely look forward to that game. Now, as far as real quick, now I talked about Trayvon Walker throwing down Davis Mills, pretty much gift wrapping the Texans a victory in that game right there. Again, that was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. You see Chris Jones last night. Grady Jarrett, that tackle against Tom Brady. The great Tom Brady. Of course, you all know Tom Brady. I'm a Tom Brady fan. I mean, he's the GOAT. I mean, yeah, I get it. But we all know Tom Brady doesn't like to get hit. Anytime Tom Brady, even on that play, on the play in question, he tried to kick at Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett just brought him down to the ground and tackled him. And this has been going on for years. If you tackle Tom Brady hard or whatever, he'll get up, he'll say something to you as if you're not supposed to tackle Tom Brady. And so I like when these defensive players, as much as I like Tom Brady, if you're going to go out there and play at 45, bro, you're going to take the same punishment everybody else is going to take. Don't nobody give a damn that you're 45. If you're 45 and you should have thought about that before you got out there. But the thing about it is, that's something, damn, boy, that's still amazing. He's playing at 45. Man, I'm 52, and I ain't thought about football. I don't give a damn if he's playing quarterback or what. 45 and playing at a high level like that. But if he's going to get out there and play, hey, treat him the same way as any other quarterback. But you see him, they take him down to the ground, or somebody, they touch him after he throws a pass and knock him down. He gets up and looks at him like, hey, you know, what are you doing tackling me? Man, Grady Jarrett, what are these players? I hear people talking about how you should probably just put them. I mean, is this powder puff football or what? These are grown men out there playing football. I mean, you cannot mess with the integrity of the game like this. I know I'm very sensitive to the fact that the Tua Tagovailoa and that concussion and the situation, we don't have time to talk about it tonight. Maybe we'll address it when he comes back about what happened. We were not in here last time, but when it happened, we hadn't been in here since it happened, where he actually had the concussion in most people's eyes the game before he actually got knocked out. And of course, that's what started the hoopla about protecting the quarterback in the NFL. So the NFL was kind of caught in a tricky situation, but at the same time, I think they're protecting these quarterbacks way too much, where they're taking the human element out of the game and they're not exercising common sense. Now, I get it. On the field, it's easy for us to watch the replay and see something transpiring, and maybe the referee seeing it from a different angle and maybe not seeing it the same way. But that Grady Jarrett situation with Tom Brady, which negated a chance for Atlanta, who had the momentum, which negated a chance for them to possibly come down and win that game. A lot of people say, even when it happened, I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, the dude is going full speed. He has to bring the guy down to the ground. What else is he supposed to do? I mean, if that was another quarterback, I didn't even said it at the time. Before I heard Dan Orlovsky refer to it and all this and that, I promise, I said at the time when I was watching the game, I said, like right after that, I said, okay, now just think if that's somebody like Josh Allen or that's exactly what I said. What if that's somebody that's real mobile, a big quarterback, you know, that can get out of the grasp of defensive linemen or something like that. I mean, these linemen are playing at full speed, and I don't think that was egregious at all. I think that was a horrible call, and you're taking the human element out of the game. This is not powder puff football. These are not women out there playing football. They're grown men. I understand the dilemma you're in because of the concussion protocol and things of that sort, but these are just bad calls right here. I mean, you have to know that what else could the guy do? Now, the solution, I don't know. Replays, I don't know. But then you open up a Pandora's box. I mean, you start incorporating replays. Of course, it's going to slow down the game, of course. But then, they did the same thing with interference. I think this is something they definitely have to explore, because teams are losing games because of this. And, I mean, you negated Atlanta a chance to come back down and have a shot to win that game where they regained all the momentum back. And you negated that with a horrible call. Now what happens if you get this thing where you want to review everything? Of course, it's going to slow the game down, but at least you'll be able to get it right, and at least you'll be able to, you know, whoever wins the game, that play will not cost them the game because you're able to review it and look at it. But I just think, and I mean, what are these guys supposed to do, man? Even Tom Brady is over 200 and something pounds. You think so I guess the referee is saying that you're supposed to grab him. You're supposed to grab him going full speed, and instead of slinging him to the ground to make sure you get him down and to make sure he doesn't escape, you have to try to use, because you're a defensive lineman and you normally weigh more than them, you're supposed to be able, in all situations, or is it just because it was Tom Brady? But you're supposed to be able to just grab a hold of him and hopefully he'll fall down to the ground quietly and slowly. But you're supposed to be so big and strong to where you just grab him and you could just pull him down to the ground nicely and place him on the ground and all is well. The quarterback is healthy. How about you just put a red jersey on his ass? How about I just put a red jersey on him the same way they used to do our quarterbacks in practice? How about I just put a red jersey on him where you just can't touch the quarterback at all? You know, and how about you do that? I mean, that's the first conclusion I come up to because it's become powder puff football, flag football right now. I mean, this is the NFL, and of course you want to take as many safety precautions as possible, even though you realize it's a violent game and injuries are going to happen. But at the same time, you have to use common sense, and you cannot take the human element out of the game. That play last night with Chris Jones, that was probably more egregious than the Grady Jarrett play. I mean, if you think about it, that was actually a turnover. Now, granted, Kansas City, because Patrick Mahomes happened, and of course they started dialing it up, and Andy Reid, they were down 17-0. The Raiders were desperate. It looked like the Raiders were going to get one, and they were looking like the team that we all thought the Raiders would be. You know, and with Josh McDaniel, Devontae Adams, and those guys. But you have a chance. I mean, what he tried to brace himself. I mean, what else was Chris Jones to do in this situation? He's retrieving the ball in one instance. I mean, bruh, this is football. What are we doing? What are we doing? This is craziness. This is craziness what's going on some of these calls. But I could talk about some of the calls as well of some of the coaches. You have some of these coaches being aggressive. You look at the two-point conversion. You look at the two-point conversion by a lot of people say Kansas City. Of course, Kansas City came back and won that game 30-29. And you look at the two-point conversion right there. Kansas City went for two prior to that. And earlier, Josh McDaniel played it conservative. I'm not crazy about all this analytical stuff. I've said from day one, once that became real prevalent in a lot of people's thinking, these analytics and things like that, I mean, it's so many different factors that go into these analytics. I mean, who's playing at that certain time, who's not playing, you know, certain times of the game. It's so many different factors and variables that go into every situation is different. And so you can't draw the same experience. I mean, you have to have a feel for the game. You have to have a feel for what's going on during that particular game, during that particular drive, what's been working for you, what hasn't been working for you. But they actually went for it. They actually neglected to go for it. And I can talk about a lot of other games, teams. I mean, we don't have time to talk about a lot of these other games. I mean, kudos to the Giants, Saquon Barkley. They're like the real deal. Brian Dable has those guys playing, has them believing, playing within the confines. Without all that talent, Saquon is back. They're looking like he's utilizing what he has and not trying to do something that he can't do with the players he has, and it's working for them. And he's changed the culture of that team. So kudos to the Giants. And there's some other teams that I can talk about that I'll talk about another time. But the NFC East is looking real good right now. But in a situation like that, he neglected to go for it. So, of course, Andy Reid comes down. You know they're playing at home, that high-powered offense. They had come back from a 17-0 deficit. So he didn't make it. So the next time when the Raiders go down and the game is close and they score, they decided they want to go for two as well. Now, part of that was the feel for the game. I think Josh McDaniel figured his chances of getting out of there with a victory, with the way the Chiefs were moving the football and them playing at home. You have to realize, too, you can throw all this analytical stuff out the way. Who's on the other side right there? I mean, this is not Jared Goff on the other side, and nothing against Jared Goff. That's just the first name that came to mind right there. But it's Patrick Mahomes over there, the best quarterback in the NFL, probably. I mean, and of course, Lamar Jackson wants to have something to say about that. We'll talk about that another time. He was able to get that victory as well. But kudos to them, even though he didn't play great, made the plays when he had to. But Josh McDaniel decided to go for it, thinking that the run game had been stellar for most of the night. They had been moving the football, and Josh Jacobs had been pretty much getting 4 or 5 yards of carry. So he figured he could get it in right there from the 1 yard line. They can get it in. They can take the lead, and hopefully the defense could get a stop. I mean, if anything, you knew. So I don't necessarily disagree with that call. Now, of course, it's easy in retrospect to sit there and say, well, you want to tie the game and give your team a chance. To be honest with you, yeah, you could have did it that way too. But again, you're playing Patrick Mahomes on the road, and take the lead right now and hope you can hold on because, hey, your chances, you go into overtime, yeah, the coin toss could go either way. But again, you're at the 1 yard line. Things have been working for you. You also know too, now, coaches won't tell you this as well, but I just talked about Andy Reid going for it. Prior to that, he was aggressive, and Josh McDaniels wasn't. Sometimes you want to show them, hey, I'm aggressive too. I know you're Andy Reid, and you're going to pull out all the stops, and you have all these cute plays and fancy playbook. And I know I've been noted for being with the Patriots, who's more conservative and all this and that. Now, I don't think that really had too much to do with it, but he saw Andy Reid go for it, and I think that probably gave him that extra motivation to go for it himself as well and to play that game. It's a chess game. And, hey, you know what? I'm not scared either type of deal. You know what I'm saying? But yet and still, the Raiders still had a chance. Devontae Adams had a great game. I still don't think they target him enough. You think he misses Green Bay? I'm not saying he misses Green Bay. You think he misses Aaron Rodgers? And we don't have time to talk about Aaron Rodgers. I've told y'all for the last 3 years, even when they were 13-3, that I thought they were a fluke even when they were going 13-3. So the Giants beating them, I mean, the Packers starting out 3-1, yeah, run game, and they probably could have stepped. The Packers are not going to win the championship. But you think Devontae Adams, I think they should target him more. Now, granted, a lot of that had to do with what the Chiefs were doing. The Chiefs were rolling coverage over to him after a while, even though he had some big catches, had a couple of interference penalties that he got called on the Chiefs. But I will say this, credit to the Chiefs on that pass, which he actually bobbled and went out of bounds. He controlled it, and he thought, hey, lost his concentration right there. Credit to that defensive back, that flash right there in that situation, that flat, because that's what made Devontae Adams lose his concentration for a second because he saw that DB approaching. So credit to Steve Spagnuolo and the DB when it mattered most to put themselves in position to where his break on that football just threw Devontae Adams off just a second, and that's why he was able to only get 1 foot in by the time he made control. You take that. Then that play at the end where they still had a chance, Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow ran into each other. That was Devontae Adams' fault. Devontae Adams, taken from a receiver, that was Devontae Adams' fault. If you look at the play, Devontae Adams lined up at the bottom of the numbers on that play. He had been having success with those deep passes and getting interference calls and things of that sort. On that particular play, I think it was like 40-something seconds left, and they were trying to move the ball downfield, obviously, for a field goal. But Devontae Adams actually lined up at the bottom of the numbers. Press coverage. Spagnuolo say, I don't care. You beat us a couple of times. We're going to play press coverage and not let you have this free release off the ball while y'all are trying to get all these necessary yards to give your field goal kicker a chance. But he lost at the line of scrimmage. And when he lost at the line of scrimmage, the defensive back for Kansas City pushed him all the way 5 yards inside the numbers. So that's why he collided. He was supposed to clear out. He was supposed to win at the line of scrimmage and get back vertical upfield and pretty much clear it out for that out route that was going to be about 15 yards deep for Hunter Renfrow. So that was on Devontae Adams for not winning at the line of scrimmage right there. So you saw where he blew up after the game, threw his helmet down. He knows that was his fault because he knows that he didn't win at the line of scrimmage on that particular play. So kudos to the Chiefs. The Chiefs are fun to watch. We were texting during the game last night, and I was like, watch this comeback. Watch this comeback. Hey, man, they are just fun to watch. But So yeah. So the Cowboys and the Eagles this week again, and really want to see what transpires with that. The Cowboys have to be same way on defense. Yada yada yada. The Chiefs again. Last night the Raiders had a chance. That was a huge loss for the Raiders right there. But the Chiefs just, man, they're just too much, man. How they can draw it up. You look at McKinnon, and they have three guys that are running back. The run game, when they get that run game going, it's almost, I mean, you almost can hang it up. To go along with Mahomes and what he's able to do, now you have a plethora of receivers who can do different things, and they give you, but just the way they scheme up things and draw up things to go with Patrick Mahomes' arm talent. Now you have McKinnon, a guy that fits that scheme to the fullest, to go along with Pacheco and the first round draft pick, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You have that three-headed monster right there running back. All of them talented. All of them can catch the ball out of the backfield, do exactly what Kansas City needs. All of them fits great into that system with an offensive line that's balling right now. So, hey, so that's what transpired last night. And again, before I get out of here, actually, anything else, NFL, real quick, again, there's a lot more NFL I could probably talk about. Again, Matt Rule getting fired, he'll get hired on by somebody else. But he never had a quarterback. But you never, and I used to vouch for Baker Mayfield. Baker, no. I mean, Baker, I don't dislike Baker. And, of course, he had some injuries last season. He's out. Hope he gets healthy. Has a high ankle sprain. But Carolina's not devoid of talent. But he doesn't have that franchise quarterback. I'm sure they'll be in the market for a franchise quarterback as well. But the great coaches, the great NFL coaches, they still, you look at Brian Dable. He's utilizing, even though Daniel Jones is running all over the place, really not utilizing his arm, he's using his strengths. The great coaches will still get something out of their quarterback. Hell, look at the aforementioned Cooper Rush, what Mike McCarthy is doing, and you have to say that right now. And those guys over there in Dallas. So, but he's ousted with them. And real quick, basketball, Draymond, come on, man. Hey, come on, bro. Now, that was a sucker punch. Him against Jordan Poole right there. Now, my thing is, once the video, anybody that doesn't know, Draymond Green has been in the news. He's taking a leave of absence from the Golden State Warriors. We all know basketball season will be starting. The regular season will be starting. The real games, the real deal will be starting October the 18th. And we can talk about next week. We can talk about a lot of the scenarios, the contenders, and all this and that. Trust me, it's going to be a lot of NBA talk in the coming weeks. But, bro, we know you set the tone for the team. We know you're that guy with the feisty attitude, but you have to be more of a leader than that. Now, when the video transpired, he walked over to Jordan Poole. I don't know what was being said. And granted, I'm a former athlete. And at first, before I saw the video and before I really soaked it all in, I said, okay, things happen. Things happen in practice. I mean, I've been there. We've had skirmishes and fights. So, okay, cool. Until I really found out that he landed until I really saw the video and really saw what happened. Because, of course, training camp, people are tired. You never know what goes on. I mean, guys are talking trash during practice, and sometimes it gets heated, and it gets emotional like that, and guys, hey, a lot of that testosterone is going, and that's what happens. So I thought maybe it was in the heat of practice, and they're running up and down the court or something like that. I didn't know that they were not even participating in the practice at that time, that they were both on the sideline. When I saw him walk over, and the thing about Draymond in this situation, it's almost like, bro, I know no fight is equal. Don't get me wrong when I say this. But pick on somebody your own size, man. I mean, they say Jordan Poole talk a lot of noise. He has that swagger, and they say he's in practice. He's dominating a lot of times, talking noise. And I'm sure Draymond does the same thing. I'm sure a lot of them do. But this time it got the best of Draymond, obviously. I don't know what was said. But when I saw them standing on the sideline and Draymond walked over to him, now, allegedly Draymond Green a couple years ago got punked by Tristan Thompson. I don't know how true it is, but Tristan Thompson is 6'10". Yeah, I don't know how true it is. I wasn't there. But allegedly, not during the season, but somewhere they ran into each other somewhere. Allegedly, he got punked. I don't know if it was a punch thrown or not. Maybe it was, but allegedly he got punked by Tristan Thompson. But Jordan Poole, you go over there. Draymond knew exactly what he was doing when he walked over there. He knew that he was going to probably end up punching this guy because he was already heated for one. He knew that once he walked in Jordan Poole's personal space, that Jordan Poole's natural reaction was probably going to be like, get back off of me. I mean, so when he walked over there, he already knew what his retaliation was going to be right there. So I think it was very calculated. And I think it was weak on Draymond's part, to tell you the truth. But you're going to bump your noise, talk your noise, whatever. But you knew when you went over there, when you invaded his personal space, that he was going to, natural instinct, get up off of me. Jordan Poole didn't think the guy was going to punch him like that. And Draymond caught him. But that was kind of weak, though, bro. And I know Draymond's mom came out and said, well, no, that's what happened. And I mean it again. Hey, trust me. I've been around for years. I know no fight is equal and all this, again, like I just said a second ago. But in a situation like that, man, team leader, and of course both of those guys are up for contract, so it may be some resentment right there. I think they're going to take care of Jordan Poole first, because at this point, I think he's more valuable, and he's been balling since then. Credit to Jordan Poole, what he's done since then, and he comes out the very next game, preseason, and balls out. So I like the fact that he was able to compartmentalize that and really stay focused on the task at hand. But he hasn't forgiven. Word out of Golden State is that he hasn't forgiven Draymond for that. And that's something right there that could come back to haunt Golden State. I don't know how long Draymond is going to be out. You know, usually I'm a guy that's saying, well, they'll figure it out. And you know, as long as they're all there and they're all healthy, and which they will. I mean, I still think the veteran, but now you're going to have a player who you have 4 championships. Draymond, 4 championships. You know, so I understand you're the tone setter and all this and that, but pick and choose your battles, bro. And I don't think that's one right there that you should have did. If you think about it, now the way that can affect the chemistry to a degree, I think with the veteran leadership of Steph and Clay, Iguodala on that team, for the most part. And you talk about Steve Kerr, head coach, who's been in a situation where Michael Jordan punched him when they were playing. So he's been there before. So, of course, Golden State doesn't want to make too much of a fuss about it. Draymond, he came out and publicly apologized, taking a leave of absence. I still think ownership made him come out and do that and decided to take that leave of absence. But they pretty much stayed out of it and pretty much like, hey, we got this. We're the champions. We got it. But look, he decided to take a leave of absence, so kudos to him. But I think he was kind of forced into doing that. I really honestly don't think that's something that, okay, let me stay away for a while because I'm upset that I acted. No, I mean, I don't think that's what happened. But what it does, now you have a guy who's a tremendous part of your future to go along with Andrew Wiggins. Now you have a guy who could be disgruntled, who you really, if you're Golden State, you want to pay him first. Draymond, I mean, I think some of that hinges, and of course you want to pay Wiggins too. We all know what Draymond means to the team. But the success, I'm going to tell you something else. What Kuminga does this year is going to matter a lot with what happens with Draymond Green. Because if Kuminga, who used to sub in a lot for Draymond Green last season, if he hits the ground running and he hits his stride and he can give that offense and turn into a defensive player that doesn't foul all the time, but uses athleticism, if he can turn into that guy, that star player, I mean, it's a no-brainer. If Draymond wants this, I mean, unless Draymond is going to have to take a pay cut, you know, but, and we, again, I know what Draymond has done for that team over the years, but you have to be more of a leader in that situation. And now I hear Jordan Poole hasn't forgiven him because think about it, man. A guy walks over to you, and again, that was still kind of, now Jordan, once he pushed him, you have to be on your P's right there too, young fella. You still, once you make contact with him, you have to be ready for some retaliation in that regard too, that he might retaliate and use that as an excuse to throw a punch. So you kind of have to be, you have to be ready for that as well if you're going to push a guy up off of you as well and get physical yourself. But I'm not trying to fault Jordan Poole at all in that situation. Again, I don't know what was said and all this and that, but you don't want to disgruntle Jordan Poole. As of now, it seems like he's playing well. when Draymond comes back, we all know what's going to happen. You know, Draymond is going to placate to the cameras. The same thing he did with Durant after he had that falling out with Durant on the sideline. He's going to placate to the cameras, and he's going to try to disarm everybody and change the narrative. Oh, look how cool Draymond. No, man, that right there, I don't know if Jordan Poole, because what that does, that emasculates Jordan Poole, and it makes him look, I mean, in my eyes it doesn't, but in his eyes, I don't think that's probably why he'll probably get over it anytime soon, because, man, you just came and punched me. Like, you know, it emasculates him. And so that we'll see what happens with the chemistry for Golden State moving forward in that regard. Ready to see what Luka had a big-time offseason playing for Slovenia. Looks like he's in shape. Y'all know that's my favorite player. Zion, it's all about Zion. Hell, Zion could be in an MVP conversation with that Pelicans team with C.J. McCollum and, I mean, some of the players they have and I mean, Brandon Ingram. And the Pelicans can be legit this year. Zion looks healthy, looks in shape. And we all know when Zion is healthy, he's dominant. You know, we can talk about the Clippers, the Bucks, the Celtics. And real quick, Deion Sanders in that spat with Eddie Robinson Jr., who's no relation to Eddie Robinson Jr., former legend in Grambling. That spat, few words. Eddie Robinson Jr., Alabama State coach. Jackson State, Deion Sanders. We all know Deion Sanders. And after the game, on the handshake, where the coaches are supposed to show respect to one another and show their deference to one another and things of that sort, congratulate each other. Eddie Robinson didn't take kindly to, for one, what Deion did during the game. He thought Deion maybe shouldn't have threw a pass when he actually threw a pass. Sometimes that happens, but leading up to the game, he didn't like the disrespect that he said Deion gave him. Of course, Deion refuted that. He said Deion walked through their huddle before pregame and all this and that and made comments leading up to the game about how Alabama State is about to get paid because Jackson State is in the building. Deion refuted that by saying, hey, I was just trying to build up the game. Of course he's going to try to save face right there. But we all know Deion can be brash, and he probably didn't mean anything by some of those comments. He's just been, you know, being kind of cocky at the time. It's Alabama State's homecoming game. But after the game, Eddie Robinson Jr. did not shake Deion's hand, actually kind of nudged him. Deion kind of pushed him away. Deion was kind of dumbfounded why, but come to find out, Eddie Robinson wasn't too pleased with feeling disrespected by Deion before the game and pregame warm-ups, them coming out there, and he said that Deion walked through their huddle and line or warm-ups or whatever. But at the same time, too, though, if you're that upset about that, why didn't you say something at that time? Is it because you lost the game? Now you're mad at the end of the game? I mean, if that was such a problem, you should address that before the game, not wait and see if you win first. But Deion refuted a lot of that. And, of course, it's much to do about nothing now. And he gave Deion his credit about being a great coach, says he hopes he doesn't go to a Power 5 school. Folks, Deion is gone, folks. Deion is gone. If Deion is offered a job with a Power 5 school, he's gone. Love what he's done for Jackson State, but Deion is gone, folks, as soon as possible. So, but Deion refuted all that, saying he was trying to hype up the game, build up the game, and all this and that. But we all know Deion could probably say some things that, you know, because he's cocky, and even though he doesn't disrespect the game or he knows not to disrespect an opponent, he still, but, you know, it could have been taken out of context. But again, would you have done that if you would have won the game? Would you have been that mad? But you know what? Let me get out of here. Hey, we'll talk next week. Roof, the sports court in the building, baby. I'm out of here. Screw it, what I do? Hit stop? Man, I don't want to delete the whole show, bro.